Hi everyone, my name's Claire Parnell and it's so great to be here today with our product expert, Dr. Li Lorenzon, the formulator of ClusterX2, a groundbreaking product in NHT Global's wellness line, created to benefit the body with improved cellular hydration. For those of you who don't know Dr. Li Lorenzon, he is a renowned scientist, biologist, and researcher in the field of functional water. He received his bachelor's degree in biology from the University of California at Berkeley and received his PhD in biology at Open International University in Sri Lanka. Since partnering with NHT Global in 2006, more than 500,000 bottles of his ClusterX2 formulation have been sold worldwide. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Li Lorenzon.
Hi, Claire.
Hi.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It was a pleasure to be here.
Your wife, Penny, was really the inspiration behind why you invented ClusterX2. Can you kind of give us an overview of where it all started?
At that time, she was in her mid-30s. She was very healthy. We had 2 young sons. And then suddenly, one morning, she decided she just really had no energy. Where I was working at the time at UC Irvine School of Medicine, they said, well, there's really not a whole lot that could be done for her. And, obviously that was not an acceptable answer. So it kind of a last resort, I thought, well, I've heard of healing springs in Lourdes in southern France because nothing else was working. And as a result, we decided to get these healing springs waters from all around the world and then analyze them. And I duplicated what that was going on, and once we had a stable form, I gave it to her, and within a few weeks she was doing well. She was very well.
What was so special about the water in those healing springs? Why was it different and better?
Well, now that in retrospect, we know that these springs exist all over the world. There are wonderful springs in France, Russia, Italy, Japan, China, Africa. They're all over the world. But the issue is that they have a structure that only lasts a few seconds. So once they come from the source, people report, oh my gosh, this works wonderfully. As a matter of fact, there's a spring in Tecolote, Mexico, that people, it's a world renowned. People go there with big 5-gallon bottles and they fill up and they leave with the water, but it doesn't work when they leave. So they have to stay there and drink it. So what we found was that it was a signature called the oxygen 17 NMR, which indicated the structural integrity of the water. And as long as you have that source, you'll do very well, but you can't take it with you. So we had to get samples flash frozen with liquid nitrogen at these sources and ship them back here. And then we had to x-ray them and look at their confirmation. That's when we began to reverse engineer what was happening. So that was where our research went, from finding this phenomenon, but then making it stable so that we could get it out to the world. And that's been our desire ever since.
Can you talk a little bit more about why water in general is so important to our body in terms of what kind of processes that it helps within our body, what kind of functions?
There's a Dr. Gerald Pollack at the University of Washington who's probably one of the foremost authorities on water in the world. And some work done at Yale and Stanford showed that the average human cell has about 2 billion water molecules in one cell. And we have something like 30 trillion cells in our body. So if you calculate that out, Dr. Pollack said that 99.9% of all molecules in the body are water.
So are we just a big old bag
But
of water?
big old bag of water,
Okay.
right? But it's the structure of that really determines our function. You know, if you've ever looked at the hands of a little baby, they're cute little dimples, right, in the knuckles because they're so full of water that you know the skin is plump and moist, and it's a wonderful sight to see. But as we get older, like me, you know, the skin gets kind of thin, and the water isn't held as well. So, there was a Dr. Seiji Katayama at the University of Shizuoka in Japan, and he showed that when we're very young, the chemical structure of the water in infants is radically different than the chemical structure, let's say, in an older person. So if that's the case, if that's part of the normal aging, then in theory, if we can give you something that will mimic the water of youth, that will mimic the ability of that water to move more rapidly, then that should really help you function better. And that's exactly what we've done. The whole idea of what our technology does is it's a little wake-up call. It tells the body, okay, let's start pumping water more effectively back and forth, right?
So Lee, you had mentioned before that when we're young, the water in our cells is highly mobile, but that as we get older, it becomes more bound. So that means that the levels of clustered water in our bodies decline naturally as we age?
Yes, that's true. Well, I mentioned Dr. Katayama in Japan, and he discovered that that the water of very young infants moves very quickly. And the ratio of water in the cell to outside was 70% of the water was inside the cell and just 30% outside. But as we age, that ratio changes. So it goes from 70-30 to basically 70% outside and 30% inside. And when that happens, the cell communication is challenged because there's not enough water to carry information. The important thing is to really make sure you're getting these intracellular water levels pumped back up again, and that's what,
like we were when we were younger.
That's exactly it. Yeah, because it's a little biological wake-up call. It's telling the body, okay, let's move the fluids right in and out, and by doing that, you're improving nutrient absorption. You're improving cell waste removal because their cell systems have kind of been awakened.
So how does clustered water compare to other kinds of water, for example, regular bottled water or alkaline water, for example?
Yeah, there are a lot of good waters on the market, and most of them are, you basically look at purity, want to make sure there's no bacteria, that they're biologically clean, and some have been supplemented with other minerals. And and they've even had their pH adjusted, and that's all fine, but they don't have the biological activity that ours has. So the overall hydration is a big issue, and just because you're drinking 8 glasses of water a day doesn't mean you're going to be able to achieve what you need, and we've proven that with our testing.
Talk a little bit more about how you make the clustered water.
We have to take a large quantity of very, very pure water and then react that to magnets and lights over many hours. Then we slowly add in the other ingredients that are used in ClusterX2 so that they are reactive and absorbed very readily. And it's a long, tedious process of exposure.
Let's talk a little bit more about the product. So we know that ClusterX2 has the clustered water. Are there any other ingredients in ClusterX2?
Yeah, well, there are 3 primary important ingredients. One is cranberry, and one is pomegranate, and the third is grape seed extract. And the grape seed extract is really a remarkable material. It has a lot of profound anti-aging properties, and has been known for centuries as a great source of a lot of important nutrients for as an antioxidant. So those three together really are a great combination. And we've actually known that when we process the water with these magnetic fields and light, that we can actually amplify the biological effects. And I actually presented a paper with Professor Rhine at a conference in Germany a few years ago, where we showed that we could take an herbal compound and amplify it by treating it with magnets and lights, so that the dose could be substantially reduced. So even though you're using very little of this, it still has a very strong biological effect.
So Lee, how do people use ClusterX2? How do you make it?
When we're making it, it's very simple. In the U.S., we can buy gallons of distilled water. For example, Arrowhead is one of several good distilled waters out on the market. If you want to do a whole gallon, you just get a tablespoon like this, and then measure 2 tablespoons and put it in here and shake it and refrigerate overnight, and you're good to go.
Got it. On the tablespoon. So 2 of these with 1 gallon.
Right.
And so for our friends who use the metric system,
Right.
what would that look like for them if they're using liters?
Okay, so for our friends that they're going to be mixing up 1 liter at a time, the easiest thing is get a good distilled water or purified water source, and let's just measure out, in this case, 1 liter of water, and just shake up the product really well, and then remove the inner seal. And then we have here a 5 cc measuring. So you can see we would just add two mixes of teaspoons of that. And that's really all there is to it. And
refrigerate it
overnight.
overnight.
Refrigerate overnight.
And for some people who might not have easy access to distilled water, what other kinds of water could they use instead?
Yeah, well generally we find that reverse osmosis water works just fine, and where we've had challenges are in spring waters that have a very high mineral content. That doesn't seem to work as well. I mean, there still may be some benefit, but the numbers are kind of all over the map. So we'd like to make sure that our effects are consistent, so that we're asking people to use either distilled or reverse osmosis.
And is there an ideal time of day that people should consume ClusterX2?
Generally for me, what I do is I usually have a bottle not only at the office but at home, and I'll have a glass in the morning and a glass at noon. That's generally what I do.
And are there other steps people can take to kind of protect their cellular hydration or just their cellular health besides drinking ClusterX2?
Yeah, well, I think obviously NHT has some great antioxidant products. So I would be using those in conjunction with the ClusterX2, because they're very complementary. They're very digital in how they work. They interface well. So if you could make sure your antioxidant activity is really covered, that's probably your first hedge of protection.
Got it. And our last question for today is, Lee, how is your wife Penny doing now?
Oh, well, she's run circles around me. And we just celebrated our 45th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
And she still opens the door for me at night, which I guess is a good sign. So, but no, she's doing great, and we're just very happy, and I'm glad that she's very healthy.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming here today and spending time to tell us more about Cluster. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you to NHT and all our friends all over the world, and my wife and I send you best wishes for health and happiness and prosperity to all you and your families.
Cheers.
Okay, salute. Thank you.
Very refreshing.